Today on the 1% podcast, we are excited to invite an absolute rock star. Kellie Allen is the team leader at the Legacy Lending Group, part of the CMG mortgage team here in Boise. She has a wealth of experience in all things real estate lending and finances related to buying real estate, refinancing real estate. If you're interested in buying a home or reinvesting, she also has an amazing career talking about being a mom and how she's able to dispel the false narrative that you can be successful if you are a mom, and the belief that it's mutually exclusive. So we're excited to have her on the podcast today and excited to hear what she can share with you about being a mom, running a business, and finding success.
Anything, if you get off track, I always go back to my workout. That's the first thing, because you can do that consistently every day and it just starts you off right. So get up, do the same things in the morning that you do every day. The other thing about the Boise market for sure is from an investment standpoint, like if you have investors coming in to purchase rental properties and things like that, you have to have a large chunk of money to make that cash flow today. I always think, you never know, that might be the one happy hour that puts me in front of that one person that then creates a referral source for the next, 10 years or whatever. I mean, the best relationships sometimes I've had have happened by just happenstance, by being in the right place at the right time.
Kellie, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So you're the first guest that I've had on the podcast that I don't have like a long-standing relationship going into this. So you and I just kind of got to know each other a little bit. So this will be fun because it's kind of take on a different dynamic of us just talking and getting to know each other as we kind of go through this. So let's just start from the beginnings. I like to do with all of our guests. I think humanizing people is a really healthy way to get to know someone and understanding things you have in common. And it can often be easy to be like, oh, hey, this person's like the best at something,
Sure,
but not know where they started from and what home is. So you're an OG Boise girl, as you just told me off camera.
I am. Thank you. Yeah, I am born and raised up on the bench from the 05. So yeah, went to all the schools right there. My parents owned the same house, lived in it for 60 years.
Wow.
Grew up in that. They both are unfortunately passed away, but had that house clear up until a couple years ago.
Wow.
So yeah.
So you grew up here in Boise, went to Bora High School, a proud Bora High School graduate, Bora Lion. She just told me off camera. But so talk to us about what did that look like? You become 18 years old, whatever, graduate from high school, needing to make decisions in life. Did you know that you instantly wanted to go into the real estate business? Did you have a different direction, or what kind of ended up leading to that?
Well, I don't think, especially back then, I don't think anybody, mortgage lending wasn't technically a career you sought after. You kind of fall into the business. But graduating from Bora, I went straight to Boise State and graduated in 4 years from Boise State. But back then, being from Boise wasn't that cool.
Yeah.
So I was really anxious to get to a big city.
Yeah.
Growing up then here, it was pretty sheltered lifestyle. So I was really anxious to kind of go spread my wings, live in a bigger city. So I moved right smack in the middle of downtown Seattle. Didn't realize you could live in Seattle and say you're from Seattle and not have to be right in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
That's how small town girl I was. So moved right downtown with my girlfriend from college and got, thought I had my big Boise State marketing degree. I was going to get some cool downtown job and I couldn't find a job.
Yeah.
So I went back to work at the bank where I had worked as I was going through Boise State, and got right back on the teller line doing that. And luckily I had a manager who was across the branch and said, hey, let's move you to the other side of the teller line and come sit at a desk, which I thought was super awesome. And I'm going to show you how to do lending. So she showed me how to do boat loans and car loans and credit card loans and stuff like that. And so kind of once I got that under my belt and figured out how to qualify people and what you look for credit-wise and that kind of thing, then it was kind of a segue into the mortgage business from there.
Okay. So how long did you stay in Seattle? How long were you at the bank? And then eventually making the transition, obviously back to Boise, and then to some other companies along the way?
So I was in Seattle for about 8 years. And I call them the best 8 years to be in Seattle because it was during the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody was becoming a Microsoft millionaire.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
Ken Griffey Jr. was there. Alex Rodriguez was there. The Seahawks.
Yeah, lots of good
all the Johnny Rock. Yeah.
lots of good music scene. So it was really, really fun, especially being from a small town.
Yeah.
And being able to go into that big city life and just experience a lot of that stuff. So I stayed there for about 8 years. I met my first husband. He happened to be a real estate investor.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there working at the bank, and he's like, hey, why don't you go get in the mortgage business? You can make a lot more money. So I'm like, okay. And he was from Seattle, which I also thought was extremely cool to be connected with that.
Yeah.
So went and got a job at a mortgage company as a loan processor, and learned my first job in the mortgage business was at what they call a hard money lender. So literally they took your money that you wanted to invest and lent it out on real estate. So there was really no rules.
For those that don't know about hard money lending, if you kind of explain that.
Hard money is like basically you're a personal investor and you just want to place your money somewhere where you can make some good return on it. So they would take in people's money and they would find people who needed loans and they'd charge them 8, 9, 10, 11, 12%, depending upon how
clients that typically couldn't get funded otherwise go to a hard money lender. You're going to pay more for it. It's much less regulated, red tape, things like that, but you can get access to capital.
You don't have to sell it to any investors or anything, so you don't have to fit into any kind of box, right? So you don't have to have any specific credit score or whatever. They're equity based though, so you have to have equity in the home, because if you can't get financing through the conventional means, you're probably not the best borrower, and you may not make the payments. So if you don't, they take the house back.
They want collateral.
Yeah. So so I worked there for about a year, and then got a more conforming mortgage loan processor job at a regular mortgage company, and spent the next 8 years there just grinding. Right. It was again a really busy time in Seattle, lots of real estate activity. So it was a great environment, just thrown in. It was super fast paced. Learned the business really well. Trained a lot of loan officers by being their processor.
Yeah.
Because loan officers, their skill is sales, but not necessarily the paperwork. The processor's skill is paperwork. So they'd throw a file in and I'd throw it back at them until they got it right. Trained a few of those. And then in the meantime, I'm going back and forth from Seattle to Boise, going back home to visit family or whatever. And somehow in that 8 years, Boise started to become cool. And I'd be on a plane sitting next to somebody and they'd be like, oh, you went to Boise State? And I was like, yeah, I went to Boise State.
Yeah.
Which before I would be like, oh, I wish I had gone to a better college, a bigger college or whatever. Yeah. But we got the blue field. Football started becoming a little more popular.
Yep.
It started being more hip, more cool. So every time I'd come home, it was never long enough, right? I couldn't see all my friends, couldn't see all my family, whatever. Meantime, first marriage falling apart. So I decided to move back home, be near my family, and came back. And they didn't have a branch of the company I was working for in Seattle here. So luckily, I had a mentor who owned the company, and he said, "Hey, you go find a spot, sit in it. I'll throw you some leads, and you just go be a loan officer. You know what you're doing. You've already trained all these other loan officers." But I had to go from being a salaried person into a commission job, right?
No.
And so that was the scary part.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. But it worked out. I got a little office space and I was literally the janitor, the receptionist, the order taker, everything. Luckily, I knew how to process loans really well. So my loans were really good. And I never looked back. I mean, I think the biggest thing about going from that salary to commission is you just do it. You do it, and boy, once you do it, you never want to have a salary job again. Right?
Yeah, you're betting on yourself.
You are.
And I love that. And that's one of the whole premises that we want to have this podcast. I want to teach people how to bet on themselves, because so much of the education system and so many people that are going to influence most kids growing up are going to tell them to go seek after security rather than opportunity. And when you look for security, you're going to go be somewhere where you're not taking risks, but you don't have the high-end opportunities. And so, obviously you start at the bottom, and I love that, because I love hearing people's stories about starting from literally ground zero, right? Like,
when I was at the bank, I was making $6 an hour, and I thought I was in, the greatest job ever, right? I got to dress up every day. It was banker hours, I was professional customer service, talking to people. I mean, I thought it was the best.
I've got a degree. I work at the bank. I'm living in Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm living my dream.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right across from the Space Needle. I was right downtown. Yeah. But But you're right. I mean, once you really make that decision that, hey, I know what I'm doing and I can bet on myself, then the possibilities are endless,
Yeah.
right? You're either going to make it or you're not. And it's all based on you.
Yep. And people are coming to you with opportunities, right? Like if someone does want to hire you, they're hiring you because they're pitching the fact that, hey, I can give you more opportunities. And it's there's two ways of being an entrepreneur. You can be an entrepreneur, you can be an entrepreneur. And a lot of people may not necessarily own their own business, but you can bet on yourself and you can create a structure within the company that you work for where you have opportunities to grow and to scale and to, have an incentive base, similar to what you're talking about, where you're getting paid on commission and
for sure. And that's very much
on
the
what you
mortgage
produce.
business. Yeah, very much the mortgage business, because you are really your little business within a bigger business.
Yeah.
Like I work for a company, right, called CMG Home Loans, huge company, but I have my own legacy lending team within that business. And that legacy lending team's success is based on, my success as a salesperson and making it rain and all of that type of stuff. So I get the opportunity to look at, how much am I going to expend on my expenses? What am I going to, how much am I bringing in? Who am I going to hire? All of that kind of thing within the framework of a bigger company.
Yep. It's completely different than the mindset of, hey, I work for a company, I get paid a salary, I have this expense account, just charge to the expense account, the company will figure it out. This all ultimately comes back on me, right? Like I'm the one that has to make sure this works, and what I make is all based on my profitability.
And nothing sobers you up like when you're spending your own money.
Yeah.
Right. For
stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, you and I have a few things in common. So I was serving as an LDS missionary in Southern California when the first Fiesta Bowl happened and Boise State beat Oklahoma. Yeah. And I remember people coming to me like, oh my gosh, you're called elder when you're a missionary. Like, oh my gosh, Elder Wheeler, like Boise State, like they just won, they beat Oklahoma. Like, cause obviously people knew I was from here. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time, like when people started like, to me, making a big deal about Boise and about Idaho. And I remember walking down the street, right, like knocking on doors or talking to people. And I remember seeing this house that was flying a Boise State flag. And I'm like, oh, we got to go like knock on their door and go talk to them. So I knock on their door. It's like, are you guys from Boise? And like, no, we just love Boise State now. Cause like we saw the Fiesta Bowl and like we love it. We think Boise's an amazing place. And these people that we got to be friends with, they're like, we want to leave California. We want to come move to Boise. And that was like the first time that I had ever even really heard of that.
Sure.
Because, it just wasn't nearly as common back 20, 25 years ago where you get some people moving here, but really like Boise made its way onto the map. And as we entered into the information age, and so I like to say like the secret got out, right? Like people started discovering Boise, they started discovering Idaho, and like, hey, we can go leave these other places. Ironically enough, Seattle being one of those, but people could go leave Portland, Seattle, California, Colorado, other places, and come move to Idaho because they started discovering what it was that made Idaho so special.
For sure. We have evolved so much. And when I think back, when I was in high school, we got the mall, Boise Town Square, in 1986, the year I graduated from high school. So that was a huge deal. Before that, it was Karcher Mall, over in Nampa. And that was day trip. Oh, yeah. And it was like, pack your lunch. We're going to drive to Nampa, and somehow when the city grows.
17 miles seemed like a long ways away back.
Oh, yeah. And it was like, well, if we're going all the way out there, we're staying for the day, right? Yeah. I mean, but somehow the city grows and everything sort of gets closer and closer and closer, and the population grows. And now, you go to Nampa and back in, an hour or whatever. But
Yep. Yeah. One of the other things I love that you talked about is being willing to learn new things and being willing to start basically at the bottom, right? Like, both when you're working at the bank, not feeling like something was below you. And I think that's an important skill that a lot of people often miss in the opportunities to come up in their career is never think that anything's below you, right? No. Be willing to be the janitor, be willing to be the person that's, taking out the garbage, the person that's, arranging the furniture or setting things up or processing the loan or working at the hotel or whatever it is.
I have a rule. I mean, I don't ask anybody to do something that I either won't do myself or haven't done myself or can't do myself, right? I mean, because I think that absolutely for people to want to do things for you, you have to be willing to show that you will do them for them.
Yeah.
One of the best things I've ever heard is, one of the great ways to kind of entice loyalty and to show loyalty for your team and to get people to be endeared to you is to serve them, right? So invite them into your house and serve them dinner.
Yeah.
Not like invite them to your house and have dinner catered, but actually make them dinner and set them down and serve them. And when people see you in those positions and see that you're willing to do that for them, it just endears them to you even more and creates that loyalty, creates that bond.
100%. I love that. And Jesus is the ultimate example of leadership. In my opinion, my view that, whether it's washing people's feet or serving guests or taking care of strangers or helping people, that you really set that example of what I like to call being a servant leader.
Yeah.
And as you are a servant to other people, the people naturally want to follow you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's true in sports, it's true in business, it's true in a family, right? The person that works the hardest, the person that shows up the most, the person that does the most for everyone else is the one that people naturally want to follow.
Yeah.
And so building that connection with people. And like you said, like, there's a world of difference between having people over and having a meal catered versus being the one that's making it for them, like them seeing you rolling up your sleeves. I also think that it's a powerful help to any leader to have experience doing different jobs, right? Like, I say all the time here, like, I've worn every single hat that everyone here wears. Now, there's maybe more defined now because back in the day when we had like 20 employees, but I know what it's like to be the guy cleaning out the warehouse, cleaning the bathrooms, fixing the air conditioning, repairing the drywall, the leaky roof, or, ordering the inventory or paying the bills or like whatever it is. Like, I've done every single job that there is, right? Ordering t-shirts, putting together events, like, you're selling, you're doing all of these things, you're collecting money. When you do all of those roles, you understand the people within your organization much better.
Absolutely.
Right? And they want to follow you because they feel that sense that you understand what it is they do.
Yeah. And in my industry, there's a lot of people that get into the mortgage business or the real estate business when times are really good.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And things are happening and there's lots of people moving and coming. And so they skip a lot of this.
It's like a herd, right? It's like, boom, 8,000 new realtors. 8,000 new lenders
of doing the, actually working your way up because they just come in and they want to make the quick buck or whatever, or they want to get in while things are happening and you get that. But if you don't have the initial steps before that, you're not going to be long lasting, right? I think one of the reasons that I've been in the business so long is I did start where I started from, right? And again, I know how to do the jobs that are behind the scenes that make the end result of the loan closing happen.
Yeah.
And so when you know that, you're already going to go in setting up a whole different situation than if you're just coming in straight off the top thinking, I'm just going to sell somebody a mortgage or I'm going to sell somebody a house.
Yeah.
So it does create a much more long career in the business and something that's more sustainable, creates a bit better reputation for sure. In our world, reputation is everything.
Yeah.
And, luckily I'm from being from Boise and then coming back here and being in this business for as long as I have been has created, a reputation that will sustain me through, because every deal's not easy and every deal's going to have some hiccups sometimes. And so when you have those hiccups, having the reputation behind you to stand behind it's important. So,
and how do you work through those things, right? It's like bad things are going to happen.
Yep.
How do you work through it? On a rare occasion, things are going to go very smooth and it just all happens smooth. And it's like, okay, great, awesome. Everyone can be happy about it.
Yeah.
But how do you respond when things don't go smoothly, when things are difficult, when challenges arise? Like, that's where relationships really get the opportunity to be built, is not
huge.
When things are easy, it's when things are hard.
It's huge. And people really appreciate when you take accountability, right? I mean, that's kind of another rule I always have is that, I might not have been the one who made the mistake that caused us to be delayed, but I'll take responsibility for the mistake. It all runs to me at the end anyway, right?
Yeah.
And so being willing to take on that, hey, this is what happened, be upfront, take the accountability for what it is initially and not try to smooth it over and try to, blame it on somebody else. I mean, our world has lots of people you could blame something on, especially in the mortgage industry. You've got, 10 people who've touched your file before it gets to the closing table. I could blame it on any one of those people just to save face. But even if it's not my fault, taking accountability gets you a whole lot farther with that relationship and that referral partner. So
100%. 100%. So talk to us a little bit about, you've been through some ups and downs in the market.
Yeah.
You've lived through the recession that hit with 9/11 in 2001. You've been through the 2008 crisis. You've been through kind of some of the ebbs and flows that have gone on as interest rates have fluctuated over the years. Talk to us about that and talk to us about sustaining long term and how you've kind of handled those things and ridden the wave, so to speak, as you've gone through the ups and the downs.
Well, ironically, when I got in the business back in 92, rates were pretty close to where they are today.
Yeah.
Right. So again, kind of this full circle moment. And of course, getting
Which
in
didn't seem high at the time
No.
because in the 80s, you've got double-digit interest rates, right? And then coming into the 90s, people are like, oh my gosh, 6 and 7 and 8% is amazing.
It was fine. Yeah, it was totally fine. Now, granted, prices were a lot lower then, but still, it was fine. And you didn't know any different, right? So you just get in. One of the beautiful things about people who do get in the business right now is this is their norm, right? So they didn't live through the 2 and 3 and 4% interest rates that everybody's longing for.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I would say, you know, when 2008 happened and that crash happened, it was literally like a snow. I look at my world like the snow globe that just got completely turned upside down. Everything I thought I knew about how my business worked and how good I was at doing loans and everything else literally got turned upside down. You would walk in and there would be program after program that was shut down. There would be lenders closing on an hourly basis. I worked for Countrywide at the time, and Countrywide was the biggest lender in the nation, right? And plenty of time up until that crash happened, I was like, I'd get calls, no, we're too big to fail, right? Too big, no way, this is never going to happen, you know? But it did, of course. And what I can tell you is the time that happened after that from 2008, you know, on those next few years where our world was turned upside down and things were a lot different, was some of the best learning years I had in the business. And I'd already been in the business a long time.
Yeah.
But I never thought about what happened to a loan after it closed. My job was getting the loans in, getting them through, getting them closed, getting them in their house. Rinse and repeat, right? I didn't know, you know, I mean, I had mortgages. I knew you made your payment. As long as you made your payment, you were fine. But I had no idea what happened on the backside of all of that, right? So all the securitization and all the things that were sold and all the pools that these loans were put into and all the grading and everything that happened, I didn't know anything about that until the market crashed. Mm-hmm. And then I got a big education on, okay, this is why it's important that you actually can, you know, qualify somebody and make the payment. And even if they qualify within the guidelines, that they actually really can and will make the payment, right? Mm-hmm. So it really changed my look on how I looked at when people sat in front of me and if they were nervous about a payment, well, maybe I could get it through. Maybe the automated system said, yes, you can have this loan, but is that really what's best for you? You know, let's talk about your whole situation. Let's talk about everything you spend your money on.
Yeah.
You know, are you going to want this payment at the end of the day? Just because I say you can have it doesn't mean you should actually have it, right?
And I found that the people that are the best in whatever they do are genuinely concerned about helping people make decisions that are good for them.
Absolutely.
And not just decisions that are good for me, right? Like
That's
you're
right.
saying, hey, I go push this through, but am I helping you make decisions that are good for you?
Yes. And one loan isn't worth, you know, the heartache or the pain or one, you know, family that ends up not being able to make their payment and losing their home going through that because maybe I didn't counsel them well enough or
doesn't matter to me. I got my permission.
Yeah, I'm off. Yeah.
My hands are washed.
One loan isn't worth any of that. So it really, the crash of 2008 really helped me in those next few years learn a lot about the secondary market, about all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but then also approach my business differently. Approach it in the fact of like, you know, these are real people behind real mortgages. Before you just never thought nobody wouldn't make their payment.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden nobody would make their payment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a big awakening for sure.
Because it had been such a long time before any type of real recession had happened since then. Like really probably, you know, late 70s, early 80s had probably been the last time that there had been any sort of a major economic recession in the United States. 2001, a little blip around the whole 9/11 thing. But we didn't see the catastrophic failures like what we saw anything like in 2008. And so most people had never lived through that. Even a lot of their parents maybe hadn't lived through it or felt it as much. And back then houses cost $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Right. And so people's ability to pay things was just different, right? Like it was a completely different world. And so now the crash in 2008 was like this complete reset, right? It
was. And it was the first time we really ever saw, certainly the first time I ever saw values go down in real estate since I'd been in. I mean, real estate's a great investment. It goes up every year. Even if it's only 3 or 4%, it continues to go up.
Always goes up, never goes down.
The first time all of a sudden, oh my gosh, wait, you paid this for it and it's not worth that anymore. It's worth this.
Yep.
You know, we had a lot of people who call it voluntary foreclosure, right? Because their neighbor who potentially lost his job and couldn't make his payment and foreclosed on, they were like, well, if that house is only worth that and I owe this, well, I'm just not going to make my payments either, right? Bad decision, obviously. Yep. But a lot of people were jumping on that train. They're like, why would I pay for something that's not worth what I owe on it? well, I can
Right
go through
now.
all the reasons exactly
right
why
now.
they should, but yeah, so that was something that was really interesting, an interesting time to live through.
Yeah.
Hopefully not to have to live through
Yeah.
again, but an interesting time to live through.
I turn 39 next week, and I kind of start feeling like the old guy sometimes. Like I've been so used to being like the youngest guy in every room that I've ever been in for the last like 20 years. And now all of a sudden, like I find myself like, sometimes I sit in a room and I'm the only person that lived through the crash of 2008.
Yeah.
Right? Like where I was like, I've been home from my mission. I was in college. I'm finishing school. People like asking me like, oh, like, what are you going into? I'm like, oh, engineering and construction. They're like, really? Like, are you sure you want to go into that? Like, are you sure you want to like, I mean, I remember being in like a 100 level class and there being like 400 people in the class. And then the very next semester, there being like 10.
Yeah.
And like everyone vacated, right? Like everyone wanted to go to other fields. And it was like, oh no, you want to get away from this because this is not an industry you want to be in, right? Because obviously, you know, we're going through the housing crisis and everything that happened, and construction was not good for a number of years. But those people that stuck through it, the people that took a long-term approach, like you're saying, you know, you had those people that look at, well, the value of my house, I bought my house for $500,000 in 2006, and now it's only worth $250,000. Why would I keep making a payment on this? Well, if you fast forward,
today it's worth $1 million.
You fast forward, 15 years, and now it's worth over $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, people often make poor decisions when they're focused on the short term, right? When you can take a long-term approach and think of what is the long-term effect of this, not just like what is the effect today, people make much better choices. I certainly know it's the case with myself.
Absolutely.
And if I look back as I, critique myself, and we call it watching film on ourselves. If I watch film on myself and say, okay, where did I mess up? Where did I make bad choices? It's generally always in those times when I'm thinking short term, I'm not thinking long term.
Well, and I think also if people do quote unquote the right thing, right? So those people who voluntarily just decided, hey, I'm just not going to make my payment because it's not, I know I agreed, Mr. Banker, to you that I was going to make that payment for 30 years. But you know what? I didn't ever think that it was going to be worth half of what I owed on. So now I'm just not going to do that anymore. Well, lots of people who you would have never thought would have made that decision, unfortunately made that decision. And when you make a decision like that, then you don't get the benefit because you're absolutely right. Had they just, I know I owned real estate then, right? I know my real estate wasn't worth half of what it was before either.
Yeah.
My income wasn't half of what it was before either. But you know what? You just stayed the course. You did the right thing. You made your payments. You continued on. And again, that long-term view paid off immensely. And it did for a lot of people. But those other people ruined their credit for the next 5 to 7 years, by voluntarily repoing their houses and not being able to get back on the market. And one of the things I do think about the kids of those people who lived during that time through those 08 years where they saw their parents go through these struggles, lose their houses or whatever, I do think it's impacted them a bit on their future viewpoint of owning a home, getting a mortgage, understanding how it works. I say that with that said, though, I also think people have short memories, and I think now, gosh, it's going to be almost 20 years since that whole event
it's crazy.
happened, right?
Yep.
And so
what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, we have a lot of people moving here, and houses are in high demand. Prices are being driven up because you have this demand, coming in from the outside. It used to be that we couldn't hang on to people here in Boise, right? Like you're a perfect example of that. People live here, grew up here, and it was cool to leave, right? Like people wanted to go someplace else. And frankly, Boise didn't have a lot of opportunities for jobs and growth. And so that was like what Boise really, really lacked up until about 10 years ago, maybe even until COVID, was that there weren't the jobs here to facilitate keeping people here. We had really good friends that lived here. He worked at Simplot, and he's like, there just aren't enough opportunities for me to continue to move up. Like I've got to go someplace else. And so people were leaving Boise because there weren't the opportunities. Now the world changed. COVID changed the world. People can largely work remotely. And so now people are choosing to live here. And so I think that, we both agree on that. Another, I guess, worldwide change that you have is that young people aren't getting married at the same rate that they used to be, right?
For sure.
Today, 51% of women 30 and older don't have children. The first time in human history that's ever happened, right? There's more women that are childless at the age of 30 than there have ever been before. And I think there's a lot more that goes into that, right? But that tells the story that largely people aren't getting married at the same rate they used to. They're not choosing to have families, not choosing to own homes. You study the market, you see things. What do you see?
I do. I absolutely see it. I'll tell you a couple of things. First of what kind of scares me about it is that, yes, people do want to live here now, but they can't afford to live here now, right? At least not by themselves. I see people all day long with really good jobs, single women with really good jobs, single guys with really good jobs, and they can't afford to live in Boise, right? They got to go out further or settle for something less than they might want to live in or whatever, whether it's area or a house or size or whatever. Simply, and they've got good single income jobs, but so kind of what we're seeing to combat that some is we see people doubling up. So maybe it's a boyfriend-girlfriend situation, they're buying a home together, or maybe it's friends buying together. Maybe it's parents living with children. Parents are going to downsize, kids got to buy a house, so that we're combining that.
And I think you'll see that more and more.
We're absolutely going to see it more and more. I think that's a good part, maybe a good byproduct of it, where we're seeing families kind of come back together a little bit. But you're right. We're not seeing people get married as much. We're not seeing people with families as much. And I also just don't think that people look at home ownership the same way as they used to anymore. I mean, before, the American dream was owning a home, right? Having a yard, having the dog, the kids, the fence, the whole thing. And I don't think people really look at it like that anymore. And especially younger people, where they're way more mobile than they were before. So because of a job, and you can do the job anywhere, it's no big deal. Hey, I'll move to a really cool city for a couple years, do my online job, and then I'll move back home, or then I'll move to another really cool city, or whatever. I'll move around. And that doesn't bode well for home ownership, because that's not, you don't want a home at that point, right? There's no sense in that. So the other thing about the Boise market for sure is, from an investment standpoint, like if you have investors coming in to purchase rental properties and things like that, you have to have a large chunk of money to make that cash flow today. Because of where interest rates are, and because of what you're borrowing and those payments and stuff. So the typical person, like I grew my real estate portfolio by literally buying one house at a time. Buy a house, live in it for a while, then buy the next, keep it, buy the next house, live in it for a while, keep it, and that's how you grew. And that's a really great way to, especially if you're single, you don't have to worry about where your kids go to school and all that stuff. But a single person can't do that today because they can't afford the prices of the houses in the places they want to be. So it's a whole different way of looking at it. It's a way where now, when I talk to people about creating wealth through real estate, we really brainstorm some different ideas. Okay, maybe this first house you're buying isn't the dream house with the fence and the place for the kids and all that stuff, but maybe it's a place to get you in the market to start. And then you can leverage up from there.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about house hacking, other types of ideas, things that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of, but ways of getting into the market if they feel like they maybe can't, right? Whether that's through maybe owning a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex. That's a great
way to do it.
Maybe talk about different ideas and things that you've seen there.
Multifamily. So I'm a residential mortgage lender, so we do anything 2 to 4 units. So a duplex, triplex, fourplex. Anything over that's commercial. But a really great way and I actually have this happening right now. I'm licensed in Idaho and Washington. Have a buyer up in Washington who's buying a duplex. They're going to live in one unit, and then their mom's going to live in the other unit. So one other thing that we're seeing is parents kind of giving the inheritance before they're passing away now, right? Because that's a way that then their kids can get into real estate as well, because they can have that chunk of down payment that helps with the payment. So we're seeing some cohabitation like that. I think another great way for people in the valley here to buy is to look at, okay, well, I can live in one side, rent the other side. That helps me make the payment. We're seeing people stretch a little farther on their payment too. And that's a conversation I have with people is, I don't want to put you in a payment you don't want or can't afford, but let's talk about maybe getting rid of the other debt you have, like the car payments, the credit cards, all the other stuff. Let's get you ready. Let's talk early, get you ready, get rid of all that debt so that we can put those monies that you're paying already into your house payment. That expands what you can afford monthly, gives you a better buying pool from price point, that kind of thing. There's lots of great products out there for anybody, really, home down payment assistance and stuff that people can buy at. But it really is a much bigger conversation than just, oh, you want to buy a house? Here's a loan. It's a whole situation of what's your hot button? Where do you want to be where are you going to be in 2 or 5 years? Because that's going to determine what kind of loan we put you in. It's going to determine what kind of house you should buy. Do you want to be a real estate investor? Do you want to keep that house? Well, Don't go buy your, $500,000 dream home. Go buy, maybe a $300,000 house in an outer lying area somewhere maybe we wouldn't even want to live necessarily for a while, but it's short term. Think long term, but do this right now. So, yeah.
I love that. I agree with everything you're saying. I think that for people moving forward, they said the world's completely different. In 1998, if you were taking that snow globe and turned it upside down, basically told you, hey, 10 years from now, the world's going to be completely different. Mm-hmm. And it was, right? From 1998 to 2008, world was completely different. Take it, turn upside down again, 2018, completely different than 2008. And, now fast forward only 7 years later, but turn upside down again, the world's completely different than it was 7 years ago, right? It's like,
for sure.
I'm sure you would not have thought of 20 years ago, the primary way you'd be connecting with clients or potential clients is through making social media videos.
I would not have.
But it is, right? Like that stuff didn't even really exist. And so as the world changes and evolves, you have to adapt and you have to evolve with that. My parents' first home when I was a little kid was a tiny little 800 square foot house on the corner of 2nd and 22nd in downtown Nampa, right? Two blocks from the railroad tracks. Mm-hmm. And that's where I live. Like that's where I grew up at when I was a little kid, and they fixed it up. And then we moved to another house. They fixed that up. They built another house. They ended up selling that house. We lived in a rental house for a little while. I slept on the floor for like 2.5 or 3 years while, we're in this because there's 4 of us kids at the time, eventually 5, and we all shared a bedroom together. But like they were working their way up. They had just started a business. They were growing a business. The reason I say that is because everyone's story is going to look a little bit different, and the story that your parents lived through is going to be very different from the story that you're going to live through, right? Like your daughter's story is going to look completely different than yours because it's a different time. And so in different categories, as I see it, and I would be curious to get your take on this, different categories of people that have the opportunities to buy homes and how they can do that. I think that number one, focusing on your skill set and doing everything you can do to earn the highest income you can possibly earn. Mm-hmm. Invest in yourself over and over and over and over again. Get so good at things that people can't help but want to pay you, right? And you need to become a 6-7 figure earner as quickly as possible. And so the quicker you can become valuable, the faster you can earn money, then you can get into the housing market, right? Because if you become a renter for an extended period of time, chances are that you're never going to be able to own a home, right? Like I'm a firm believer that if you don't get into home ownership in the next 3 to 5 years, you're probably never going to get the opportunity to, right? So for most people. So I think that's one category. Invest in yourself, become highly skilled, become highly valuable as quickly as possible so you can buy a home. The second one is look at a multi-generational housing setup, right? Whether that's an ADU for your parents, whether that's some sort of duplex, triplex, fourplex, something like that, where you have other members of your family living there or something like that, to where you're kind of pooling your resources and working together. And this is not an uncommon thing in most other countries in the world, right? And now it's becoming more commonplace in the United States. So I think that that's another pool. And then the third one, I think that it is people have to be willing to take on less, like you kind of mentioned. Be willing to go do something that maybe you wouldn't have been willing to do. Maybe that is that you got to go live 45 minutes or an hour outside of where you want to be at, but it gets you into the home ownership game. And had you purchased a piece of real estate, I remember I was buying a piece of real estate in like 2017, and I ran into someone that I knew, and she was like, I heard that you were buying this piece of real estate. And I was like, yeah, I am. And she's like, why would you do that? Things are so expensive right now. That's unbelievable. Like, I can't believe you'd be paying that price for it. Right.
Yep.
And
everybody thinks that at a certain point. So.
Right. Obviously it turned out that, it was a good time, but, that real estate that I invested in back then quadrupled in value. Yeah. And so it ended up being a smart investment at the time. And I think that just getting into the game sooner rather than later, even if that's smaller, even if that's somewhere you didn't imagine it being, getting in is more important.
You got to get in and play.
Yep.
You got to get in. I agree with you 100%. I think the other thing is just being fiscally responsible and financially fit as early as possible.
100%.
Right. Because people are so instant gratification type of thing. So that's why U.S. has tons of consumer debt, right? Yep. Consumer credit card debt's out of control. If you can be the kind of person that understands delayed gratification and understands. I do think a little bit this generation coming up has some insights that we don't, as far as like not being as consumer minded, as far as having to have every new thing. If you can, and I will tell you just from simply aging, that you spend a whole bunch of your life trying to acquire a bunch of stuff. And then you get to a point where you're like, I want to get rid of all the stuff I acquired, right? I've got too much stuff. And it doesn't matter. I've seen this so many times with people where and because I deal with people who are moving all the time, obviously once they've closed on their loan, they're moving to another place. And I don't care if you've been in a place a year or 20 years, you got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you can kind of be forward thinking and going, okay, first of all, I don't need all the stuff.
Yep.
And just really focus on what your end goal is. And knowing that real estate's a good investment, you got to get into play. Maybe you don't buy the new car. Maybe you don't need, the other credit card and the multiple trips and all the things that you need to do. But
the $15,000 vacations. And even like, I saw this stat the other day that, buying a $7 Starbucks or Dutch Bros or something every day. I don't have anything in Starbucks or Dutch Bros, whatever, right? But it's like, if you were in that position where you were trying to save money, right? Like as Dave Ramsey would say, you're living on rice and beans and rats, right? Like that's it, right? Like broke people don't go out to dinner. Broke people don't go on vacations.
Totally.
Broke people don't go to Starbucks and Dutch Bros. Like you have to be disciplined enough to say, hey, I'm not going to do that. I say this sometimes, like, if my wife and I are like up late at night and, now that it's summer and the sun's out forever, like the kids don't want to go to bed till late. And the later you stay up, the more likely you are to want to eat again, right? Same thing is true. Like the more time you spend putting yourself in front of those temptations, the more likely you are to fall victim to them, right? Like, oh, hey, I'm just hanging out on TikTok. Well, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You're going to see something you want to buy, right? The more time I'm spending on, Instagram or whatever, I'm going to see something that I want to buy and I'm going to buy it. Having that self-control and that discipline to say, you know what, I'm going to delay the gratification because I have something that I'm saving for.
Yes.
And I'm a firm believer in SMART goals, right? Like having something that's specific, measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant, and it's time bound. Having a SMART goal to where you can say, I'm going to save this amount of money in this amount of time. And I'm going to set myself up because this is what my goal is. But the only way I'm going to be able to do that is I got to save up $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, whatever it is. Well, the best way I'm going to do that is by earning the highest income that I can earn. The second best way I'm going to do that is by protecting that income and not giving away, right? Like don't spend my money on stupid stuff.
And you chunk it down, right? You chunk it down into small bites. One of the best things that I kind of miss about, again, coming from a banking background, when we're working on the teller line, is they used to have savings passbooks where you'd put your deposit in and you'd add it up and then you'd see how much you had in your savings account, right? And then the next time you went to the bank, you put the money in. And I remember thinking, and maybe this just maybe I think a lot of people like, you see it and it's a tangible thing that you go, oh gosh, I can't wait till I can put my next part in, and you just gradually increase that, right? Well, we've lost all that because people don't even have checkbooks anymore and they don't have, they have it online, but having that just constant reminder of I've got this goal. And you used to have a savings account for certain things, like, okay, I'm going to have a savings account for my house.
Yep.
And the money that's going in there is saving for my down payment, or it's saving for, something new for the house or whatever it is. I think we could learn a little bit about going back to like that, targeted savings of, a goal at the end of the day in mind. One of the things I talk to clients about a lot, kind of when thinking about stretching that housing budget, is like if you're paying $2,000 a month in rent and the mortgage payment's going to be $3,000, well, go pay your $2,000 a month in rent and then take that $1,000 and write yourself a check and stick it in a savings account and just see what it does to your budget, right? Like see how it feels. Do you maybe not go to Starbucks for a couple mornings? Do you not buy the dress you wanted to buy or whatever it is?
Don't about to eat 3 times a week. Yeah.
Yeah. And see how that feels in your budget, because you'll be surprised at what you're spending on all this miscellaneous stuff that can add up to that $1,000 that then can go towards your house payment.
Yep.
And if that $3,000 gets you the house you want, well, practice. The best thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a savings account with a bunch of money in it that's, going to go towards your down payment or whatever. And the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to realize, okay, maybe it's not time for me to buy a house yet.
Yeah.
So I think that the more people can plan ahead, the more that you can get in front of somebody early and just get the numbers. Sometimes people are scared to look at their credit or the numbers or whatever, but just get in early, take a look at it, and let's get a plan going. It might be a year plan. It might be a 6-month plan. It might be a 5-year plan, but whatever it is, unless you get started, you're never going to know.
Yep.
So
love that. No, it's so true, because people are making decisions every day that are either putting them on the path that they want to go or the path that they don't want to go, right? We talk about called the 1% podcast because I believe that people can make 1% decisions every day. They're going to put them on a trajectory to where they want to go, right? Like
Absolutely.
you talked about starting out in Seattle. My first job was up in Seattle as well. I was working on Fort Lewis McChord. You probably know right where that's at. But so I'm working on Fort Lewis McChord. I'm making $16 an hour and, working long hours, building a military training complex there in a Warriors in Transition barracks. But we lived in a little lady's attic, this little mouse infested attic that was like 800 square feet or something. And I look back and some of the things that I've been through, whether that was, in school or some of those early jobs I took or some of the places that I lived or some of the things I went through, like, I'm so glad that I did that now. It wasn't cool at the time, right? Like other people are going on vacations. Like I didn't go on a vacation for 9 years. Like for my first 9 years of my career, I never went on a vacation. And being willing to sacrifice those kinds of things, like it didn't look cool then, right? Like my friends are going on trips, they're buying new stuff. Like I had the same boots, the same jeans, the same shirts, like for years and years and years. Yeah. But when you're willing to sacrifice things for a compounded period of time, it's like, guess what's really cool now? It's really cool to own a whole bunch of real estate. It's really cool to have things that pay me to own them. It's really cool to be able to say, hey, I'm not coming into the office tomorrow and I don't have to come into the office. Right. It's really cool to be able to do what you want to do when you want to do it. But if you do those things in the short term, you say, oh, hey, I'm going to go on this vacation because my friends want to, or I'm going to go on this thing. I'm going to do that thing. I'm going to Starbucks every day. I'm doing this. I'm spending my money on this dress or these shoes or this thing. It's like you're robbing yourself of those opportunities. And you are. Like you said, those handbags and those shoes and those dinners aren't going to be very cool 5 years from now and 10 years from now.
Yeah. I think you also look at, okay, well, if you're willing to sacrifice those things and get something else at the end, or to invest long term, that's one mindset. And if you're filling up your life with handbags and shoes and trips and everything else, maybe it's time to look a little bit inward and go, okay, well, what am I missing? Yeah. Inside that Starbucks is making me feel good. I mean, I've been plenty of times it's like, oh, this morning's been rough. I'm just going to Starbucks, right? Well, that's great if you have the ability to do that or whatever. But like, if you're doing that every day, all the time, then let's look at what's causing you to be, I'm having a bad morning, kind of thing.
Yeah. Love it. You have your daughter sitting here off camera with us. She gets to work with you.
She does.
That's amazing. Kind of talk about that and the fact that you guys get to work together and there's a undeniable resemblance between the two of you.
Well, it's actually been the funnest thing that's happened to me in such a long time because she just started with me this year in February. Prior to that, she was doing some social media stuff kind of on the side for me and getting me acclimated in front of the camera and doing some things that got me out of my comfort zone, which I really appreciated. And I do believe that you have to, especially in my industry, to stay relevant, you got to have to pivot, right? The way you did your business 10, 15 years ago is just not going to work today. So that's plug on that. But having her come on board has really just been a re-energization for me of my own business. And I spent so much of her young life working that I was like, I never wanted to get in this business. I was on vacation answering the phone. Had my laptop at the pool. I was definitely that mom. Yeah. I was missing things because I was working and I was always taking a work call. And I was like, oh, I hope she chooses a career where she just can go clock in, clock out, and not have to worry after hours, that she can spend time with her family and be present and all that stuff. And then she grew up and she's so cool. And she's so good at business and what she does. And she was interested in my business. And little did I know that bringing her into my business would, again, just revitalize my love for the industry and being able to teach her and show her and hang out with her every day. Because when your kid moves out and goes to college, you're sad and your house is empty and you wish she was there. So it's been really fun. I get to come in every morning and see her and then just be able to share with her. And I think her business will look completely different than mine. She very well could have children and be present with them way more than I was present with her, because she can choose to do it in a different way. And I think her business will look completely different. So,
and the world's a different place and the tools are different. And
totally. Yeah. So anyway, it's been great. And she is very social media friendly. So she is the one who's gotten me in front of the camera a lot and really encouraged me as much as I'm hopefully encouraging her. So.
I love that. Two things that I know in my own life, and I'd love to hear this from you as well. The two things the thing, number one, that's most important to me in the world is my family, right? My wife and my kids are the most important thing in the world to me. And there's no pair of shoes, there's no vacation, there's nothing that I would rather be doing than to be with them. And I think that some people mix that up, and it's easy to get lost in that at different points along our career, where you can lose sight of what you're doing it for and the demands that can often come with having a career. But I always say, like, you have to start things with the end in mind. Like, what am I doing this for? Like, what do I want out of this? And I want to create the best life I can for my family. Like, that's it. So every decision I make is with that end in mind, right? Like, I want my kids to come back home and to want to be around me. I want to be my kids' best friend when they're 25 years old, 35 years old, 45 years old. Like, I want them to want to be with me. And so are the decisions that I'm making today putting me to that end, right? Is it aligning me with that? So number one, I think that in the world today, particularly women, I think a lot of women are the victims of the targeted influence of society to tell them that having a family is a burden, that having children is a burden, that having a career is mutually exclusive to being a mom. And if you're going to have a career, you can't be a mom, you can't be successful, you can't be able to do both of these. And I think that's a complete fallacy. I think that being a mom is the most difficult but most rewarding job in the world. I feel the same way about fatherhood. I think that being a dad is the most important thing that I do. But the other part with that is I think it's beautiful what you're doing with her and helping to build a business together, because I think that a lie that we've been told is that your kids need to grow up, they need to go move away, they have to be somewhere else, they have to go work for someone else, they have to go get in their own set of debt and go do all these things. And then all of what you've learned and you've acquired and your ability to be able to pass something on to them is completely diminished. And so I think that everyone should look at, how can I build something that there's an opportunity for me to work with my kids, whether they choose to do that or not, but there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity for them to learn from me, for us to be connected, for us to build something, for them to be able to perpetuate something. And that I'm not just in this, hey, I can't wait till my kids are out of the house and they're gone and they're on their own and they're in their own set of debt for the next 30 years and they're a slave and captive to, this world that we live in. Maybe talk about that, both being a mother and then
that's a really good point. I think, hindsight's so 2020, right? Like I tell people that I kind of mentor in the business now all the time, hey, your career is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And I know I spent the first part of my career just sprinting, just going. And that caused me to not spend as much time with my family and to take those calls on Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the things where I should have been more present. And you can, have the mom guilt or whatever about it. Luckily, I have a really cool kid and she's like, no, she looks at it like, you showed me what it's like to work hard. And she's a super hard worker. So I think we can look at that and go, okay, maybe I can reframe that a little bit in doing that. But I do think that if you can learn anything, it's like to take the time, because I promise you, when you get to your mid 50s, you look back and go, time does just go by so fast. And I do wish I didn't take that call when in the middle of the dance recital or in the whatever it was. So I hope that people can take that and really look at that and go, okay, yeah. And I know that you go, okay, my family is my most important thing. And people say that all the time. And then, okay, well, if my family's the most important thing, why am I always on the phone, or why am I always on the computer, or why am I working, here when I should be there, or whatever. So I try to just constantly remind myself that, hey, I might have done it exactly how I would do it if I could do it over again. But I think I did model success for her, and I did model hard work and, all the things it takes to get ahead. And luckily, like I said, she's really cool. She appreciates that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think moms, and I think dads, nobody can, I don't even know how single parents do it. I only have one kid, and I don't even know how single parents can do it. Luckily, I had a great partner and a great husband that, supported all the stuff, but like he was there when I wasn't and all of that. And I think that if you have a good partnership like that, children really can see that. It models to them good relationship behavior, which is huge. And especially for young women, I think having strong men modeling is super important.
So important.
Yeah.
I think that many girls wouldn't fall for some of the things that they fall for if they had a good example and a father that showed them,
For sure.
like, hey, this is what a man's supposed to be. Right?
Yep.
Like, this is how he's supposed to treat you. This is what this is supposed to look like. When they don't have that, it's much easier.
We talk about it all the time. I mean, I think girls are inclined to choose, to rebel a little bit. I mean, there's going to be a period when your teenage daughter's going to be sassy pants.
Definitely not.
And she will, trust me.
My oldest one just turned 13, yeah.
They come back around. But they tend to, I don't know, push the envelope or whatever. But having that really strong male father figure is so important on who they'll choose at the end of the day and what they'll do and the choices they make. And so I can't say enough about how important that is. And women, choose wisely, right? Choose wisely, treat kindly, like Dr. Laura would say.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up on Dr. Laura and driving around with my mom, running errands. I'm my kid's mom, right? Like, yeah, a little plug for Dr. Laura. I love her. So in conclusion, you've been able to build a team in multiple facets and opportunities. Building one now, you've obviously had a lot of success throughout your career. What are those habits and what are the patterns that you've recognized in those people that you've seen be most successful, both in yourself and in other people that you're working with and maybe clients you're working with?
Well, I think number one, mindset's the biggest thing. And that's been a kind of a big keyword over the last few years. But nothing has been more clear in the last couple of years when people were getting beat up so badly that you got to have the right mindset to succeed. And it doesn't matter what the market conditions throw at you. There are people who are doing things, selling things, products, loans, real estate, whatever, in every market, in high interest rate markets and low interest rate markets, wherever. So what's the difference of those people? And that's what I try to focus on. And a large part of it, I believe, is mindset, believing that you can. And then, working hard. I just said I was working all the time and sprinting in my early part of my career, but working hard and smart at the same time. And so you can't be unwilling to put in the time.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important. So good mindset, putting in the time and doing the activities constantly and consistently. So every day having a plan. In my world where you're in sales, I could show up or not show up. I mean, if I don't get paid, if I don't do the work, I don't get paid, and that's up on me, right? And I think a lot of people go into sales type positions thinking, I want the freedom. I want to not have to clock in. I want to not have to show up at the office if I don't want to. And that's all true. But if you don't do those things, you're not going to get paid, right? So you have to have the discipline to do the consistent activities daily that are going to, and these last couple of years have taught us this as interest rates rose. We went from 60 miles an hour with a flux of business to zero.
Yeah.
And so if I didn't spend the last 3 years planting the seeds, doing the same activities that I would do, whether I was busy or not, every day, making the calls every day, those things now are producing fruit, right? We've turned the corner and we're back on again. So just really having the discipline to do those things, I think, is super important.
I love that. What are some of the things that you specifically do every day that you feel like make a difference for you? Do you have a daily routine that you like to follow? And then what does that look like for you in finding and building clients, or I'll even call it relationships, right? You're in the relationship business.
Well, one of the things I do is get up every day and get ready and go to work. And I think with the COVID years, everybody got used to working from home in their pajamas in front of a screen. And it really did a big disservice to a lot of people because now they don't know how to get up and get ready and get going at a certain time every day. And we've become so lax at that. So I'm really looking forward to companies kind of reeling that in. And I think they already started.
Yeah.
But to me, it's really important that, I get up, I work out. If anything, if you get off track, I always go back to my workout. That's the first thing, because you can do that consistently every day and it just starts you off right. So get up, do the same things in the morning that you do every day. So if it's workout, it's get home, it's have your coffee, it's get dressed, it's get ready, it's go to the office, right? And then once you're at the office, we like to have theme days. So we have, on Mondays, I call realtors. On Tuesdays, I call my Tuesday updates, people who are in the pipeline. On Wednesdays, we just have different theme days that you follow. And in a sales position, again, left to your own devices, you might not know what to do or not. So having some sort of plan, even though, say I'm here with you. Yesterday I went to a lunch appointment. Earlier this morning I was at a coffee appointment. Every day looks slightly different, but I keep a call log, and I need to make, I like to make 10 outbound calls a day. Now, sometimes I'm successful and it's 10, sales producing outbound calls. Sometimes I get to 5 o'clock and I've only made 5 calls, and I might, call a couple friends, call my family, whatever. But making those consistent activities and those consistent things daily, I feel like keeps me on track. And again, is just planting seeds for going forward, because you never know. Like, I might call my girlfriend because she needs my 10th call in the day, but she might know somebody. Hey, I was just at the grocery store talking to my other friend. She's moving back or whatever. I gave her your number. I mean, there's just stuff like that happens.
Well, hopefully a lot of people are going to watch this podcast and be like, "Oh my gosh, I need to work with Kellie now."
Yeah,
That's the point, right? No, I love that, because I'm a firm believer. My mom would always say, like, get dressed and get to your job. Like, whatever it is you have to do, like, we get up first thing in the morning, you get dressed, you get ready, and like whatever your job is, you start doing it, right?
My mom called put your face on. You got to put your face on.
There you go, right? Like, you have chores to do, you have things to do. And so I'm a firm believer that everyone needs to have, I say this all the time, everyone needs to have at least 2 jobs for the first 10 years of your career, at least, right? Maybe more. And that can look like different things. For me, it was, I was going to school and I had a job. I went back and went and got a master's degree. I was working the whole time. Even after I got out of school, I'm still working 50, 60 plus hours a week. And I'm learning, I'm researching, I'm learning things online, acquiring new skills of things that I didn't have so that my businesses could be more successful, right? And you have to treat certain things like they're a job, whether that is you actually have 2 different jobs or not, or whether you're going to school or whatever you're doing, but you need to have 2 different jobs for at least the first 10 years of your career. And that's going to force you, like, you got to be up and you got to be going early in the morning. Like, you got to get up, you got to be getting after it, whether that's you want to go to the gym first thing in the morning, you're getting into whatever your first job is.
In your mindset, yep.
And then you have other things that are going to be demanding of you. But if you can just go back to that mindset of just stacking days, right? Like, you're just showing up, you're making those calls every day, you're just stacking days.
Yep.
You're making those connections with people, you're being out in front of people, you're networking at different events, you're around, you're visible, people know who you are. That is like 90% of the game.
It is.
Right? Like, when people know who you are, they can hear what you stand for. Like, I tell people all the time, people have to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you. If people are going to do business with you, those are the 3 things. They have to know who you are, they have to like you, and they have to trust you.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to build those 3 things every day?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And visibility is huge. Like you said, there's lots of times where it becomes 5 o'clock. I'm supposed to be at a happy hour somewhere or something. I'm, oh gosh, the last thing I want to do after a long day is get to that happy hour. But I always think, you never know, that might be the one happy hour that puts me in front of that one person that then creates a referral source for the next, 10 years or whatever. I mean, the best relationships sometimes I've had have happened by just happenstance, by being in the right place at the right time. And I think you just got to constantly remind yourself of that, and do the hard things. Every time I'm in front of a task that I don't want to do, I envision what it's going to be like after I did it and how good it's going to feel that it's done. And then that, helps you get through it and then get to the end and go, yep, okay, I was glad I did that. So
love it. If you could give one piece of advice to your 20-year-old self, what would it be?
It would be to enjoy every moment, enjoy the moments as they come, and know that the example you set could impact somebody you have no idea about. I love when I get a call from somebody that said, hey, I remembered what you said to me, like, the last time we talked, and I just want you to know it made an impact on me. I love getting that kind of, and it's stuff usually that you don't even think was a big deal to say or whatever, but you never know how you're impacting somebody. So that's what I would say. I would say enjoy every moment, every season, even the hard ones. You learn something from, and they move you on to the next stage. So, yeah.
Love it. Kellie, you're amazing. We appreciate you being here. This has been fun.
It has been fun. Thanks so much for having me.
Glad to have you.